Hi, welcome back. Hope you're doing well. Today's video, I just want to kind of give you a few pointers on thickening up trunks and kind of, not busting a myth as it were, but there's no real great way of, speeding time up and just getting a mature, good trunk and not having it look rushed. Some species might give you quick growth, but it might not look great. But yeah, just got a few examples here, really, of things in different processes. Not looking very bonsai-like, some of these, obviously. Just quite out of control, obviously, like hedging plants in pots almost. But yeah, going back to the start, really, too often or not, everyone gets a tree, sticks it in a nice little pretty pot, and then wants it to kind of bulk up, and obviously that isn't just going to happen in this little pot. This pine, obviously, I've done what I'm telling you not to do, but it's because I'm kind of enjoying what we had already in the shape, and I didn't want this fingers getting too vigorous and losing this real kind of delicate movement and stuff we got there in detail. So this will be a really slow progressing tree. It may go up a little pot size at some point, but I'm just going to fiddle around with this. But going on to things that we know work successfully, so this is kind of experimental, and as cute as that is, it will be a slow game in a pot that big, but it will keep the needle small and stop this getting too vigorous. So going back to what we got on the bench here, these are all in various stages of development. None of them really of which took shape of a bonsai as such yet, but they're well on their way. Going back to starting things in little pots, this is a much quicker way of doing it. All these were growing obviously in the ground. Some of them could have done with staying in the ground a bit longer, but obviously where I collect trees from, as and when I get the opportunity, they can't always remain where they are, so I have to bring them back and pot them up. But as they show signs of kind of, progress, some vigour comes back into them, because that's what we want at this stage. And, I'll jump them up the pot size each spring if I have to. I'll have a little look in the roots, maybe not a full repot, just trim back any thicker ones and move them up the pot size. So that's really the first step, having it in a container big enough to kind of allow it to grow excessively, put some vigour into the tree. Like I say, you're not looking for short internodes and small leaves at this point. You just want to kind of bulk this up as naturally as possible. Introduce movement and things prior to that, but as soon as you've got the shape you want to pull some growth from the top. So these here are all at that stage, like I say, they've all been grown on. This has been chopped back a bit this year, but I probably want to encourage them out further, because the more kind of these kind of water shoots you get out of it, the more thickening we'll get as well. So that one's come on a long way, probably ready for its next chop, but I'll show you something else on this. There's a field maple, by the way, I should have said that before I started playing with it. It's just got this wound here from, I think, where it's kind of twinned out before, and I've selected this one that I want to keep. So a bit of the work was done here already. Obviously this is quite straight, but we'll chop it down again and have another little section come off, and I think as you look at it, this would be the direction to come with that again, or towards you there. So, and then we wouldn't have a scar facing the front. But really, this is a good example of bulking up trunks, and big container, allowed freely to grow. I cut it back in spring and we got these new shoots out, like I say, it's pulling even more sap. So part of this is to fix this one, but it's to continue bulking this up. And field maples, bulk up quite rapidly and they heal well as well. This one you cut him back a bit further, I think that's a bit proud personally. But really good healing, and again, kind of a bonus to having all this growth and foliage and bulking up the trunk is any previous cuts and wounds there will heal really well. So there's one good example there. So they're probably one of the quickest ways of bulking it up. Same with this one here. This was probably just collected, out of a garden or a hedgerow around here that's in the wrong place. So now I've got it, it's survived. I'll probably pot it up again next year. This could do with going in the ground. And maybe pick this as a new top there, and then fatten this one up, which will also add more to here as well in the long run. So there's another example there, and like I say, all of this is just being left on there just to bulk this up, and this will probably need a couple more years of that treatment before we get it to somewhere near here. So there's two there. That's a field maple again. Couple here that were obviously, these need to go in the ground really now, but again, just to show you, this one's all been left just to bulk that up. So we've got no branches going on here, there's no work going on down here or anywhere else in the tree yet, just solely to pull this and make this bigger, and you can kind of see it crazing and cracking. So you can see how well it swells up by leaving all this foliage on there. So again, this wants to probably go in the ground or the next size pot, you know, probably a bit bigger than this, and do the same again next year. Don't want to overpot them, but the biggest pot that they'll grow in happily, you know, get them in it if you can, because that's how you'll bulk up your trunk quicker. Same with this cherry tree. This was grown in the ground last year, or the year before, sorry, 2 years ago. I had a crude cut, probably with a strimmer or something. I hit it, and kind of thought, we'll keep an eye on it, and it sent out a new leader. And if I was to say to you, this is a good example of ground growing, as it were, because that was hit with a strimmer, it was damaged. It was probably the whip that came off this in the first year, you know, probably not much more than this oak in the middle here, and then just allowed to grow through spring last year onwards. You know, you can see the thickness that's got to. So this thing had been cut back, like I say, not even carefully, and the healing's really good on there. It's made quite a nice chunky trunk. This is bulked up dramatically as well. You can kind of see the amount of thickness it's put on by the amount of callousing over on the cut. Kind of gives you an idea of how much, you know, was added to that trunk. And even the branches on this one, where they popped up, got a few little scuffy bits there we can pull off. Yeah, even where these branches have come out, they're quite nicely spaced. I don't think we'll bend them right down. I think this will be more of a kind of standard broom style thing. But yeah, really, really good for its first year collected, that one. But again, just going back to the purpose of what we're here to talk about with this one, the bulking up happened in the ground. You know, the tree was allowed freely to grow, probably 6-7 foot, and that's how you get the trunk to grow quicker. And obviously, if you've made chops and put movement into it prior, then you'll end up with a nice kind of natural looking thing, instead of just quick growth that's dead straight. But obviously in this section, that's kind of perfect there, really. And then another way of bulking up things, in a way, where I'm just using this branch because it's come out. Now, I've been bending these around. This is a calicarpa. These tend to be a bit brittle, really. You get away with some of them, I find, bend really nice. You know, and then you'll push your luck a little bit and you'll get a snap, which we've got there. But probably not going to use all that. Probably going to come off under here again, or I want to get some really nice twists in this. And I found the only way so far is getting them really early on. But again, going back to bulking up bonsai, this branch here is going to be doing nothing. Once that wound's healed a little bit more there, I'll cut this off as well. And because it's so young, by the time this is bulked up, they should be non-existent, that kind of mark in there. But this will just get used to pull sap to this area and kind of bulk that out a little bit more. And it will, in turn, as well, help keep some tapering going on in this. So a very small example there, and a long way to go, but you can see from a young age, you know, where if you start getting the, you know, putting the work in and putting the shapes into them, and thinking about tapers and things, then you know, the overall project should come out a lot better, I would have thought. Probably another good one there actually for bulking. I showed this in a previous video a little while ago, but this lime tree. Let me see there. This branch here has been left. All these are new buds, which are quite nice. And this is either going to be to cut there, and I've again pulled a lot into this trunk and bulked this up, or I might keep some like little twin trunk thing going there because it's quite interesting already, the shapes. I put a little bend in that with some wire. You can see a little bit of rash on there, but I think it'll go. But another good example of just bulking up the trunk. It's in a normal flower pot. It's been allowed to grow freely up until a point. These were cut back, so you can see they put a lot of work into making this bigger. And probably maybe 2 years ago, this was no more than this here. So you can see you get a lot out of it. And this is probably coming up to around the size where I want it to be, or I would allow this to carry on freely, but maybe we can pull another one of these out, and or maybe we just carry on bulking the whole thing up there, really, because this isn't finished yet. But obviously we just want to be mindful if we're going to keep that, but that'll be a decision for another day. Just another good example of bulking up trunks. And I'll give you one look at this other field maple. This is an interesting one. I can say that. This was in a little section of garden that had been left, so we cleared it a few years back. It's going to be turned into something else. And this had been chopped back probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It was a huge stump. You can see it's been cut back. And then subsequently, from them last, you know, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years, like I say, these have grown from it, provided some healing and kind of sounded up that area. And yeah, going back again, you see, in the ground, left unchecked, these things grow like trees. not much movement in these, so they're a bit, you know, you couldn't do nothing with those now. But yeah, just you can see again, like I say, for 4 or 5 years of just leaving it to grow, you can see how big these things can get. This would have been, you know, probably 10 foot tall, something like that, you know, 8, 10 foot. So yeah, so this is an interesting one. It's a shame about this piece of damage here. That is a real shame. I think when I first digging it up, I didn't kind of notice that initially, but I don't know, I feel like there's something cool in hiding in this one. I've got lots of pieces of material that I get from gardening jobs, and you know, they're going to get chucked out, so I dig them out, put them in a pot if they show some potential. But like I say, this one is probably a difficult piece of material, as cool as it looks, but I'm sure something will come to me in the end with this. I was going to take another air layer off this year, but I didn't get around to it, just because there's some nice shapes in there as well. And then just cut it back in spring, I think, you know, where we've decided what we're going to do with it. But again, all owing to being in the ground, how big all these have got. Not, you know, being in the tiny bonsai pot. You can wait and wait and wait for that, but it's not really going to bulk up at any rate. You know, it will do over 20, 30 years, I guess, you know, noticeably, but that's a long time for versus, you know, 4 or 5 years in the ground, maybe. So yeah, really, just a couple of pointers there, really, on bulking up trunks. And there is no real easy way other than, like I say, letting the tree allow it to go freely. But just remember to put some movement and some things into it first, because you won't, you know, like it's showing you here, you won't manipulate growth like that anymore. So like I say, key things to take from it really is the container size, allowing it to grow kind of freely, and then with feeding, watering, you know, as the directions on your food will say really, but I tend to find I'll half the amount for 2 weeks, spread it over the week or whatever, you know, and keep a lighter feed going on the trees. And that will kind of, it won't harm them anyway, won't damage the roots, take the foliage, but it will just, you know, allow them to grow quite, you know, vigorously when, like I say, you're not trying to work on slowing it down and creating shorter internodes and smaller leaves. At this stage, it's all about bulking it up, so plenty of water and plenty of food. And yeah, you should, like I say, should see a noticeable difference in trunk size versus just keeping them in little tiny pots. Well, I hope you can take something from that, and we'll see you in the next one.